You are listening to Wrestling Observer Live with your hosts, Brian Alvarez and Mike Sempervive.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
How are you, everybody? Mike Sempervive here with you. I'm in a terrible mood. I've got a cold. It's like 60-mile-per-hour winds whipping outside of my house. Brian's sitting somewhere in Hawaii right now, tan, relaxed, and still on a losing streak from WrestleMania weekend. I got producer Dom working with me, who is going to remind me that the Nationals lost to his Giants, which is a series that is taking place in American Major League Baseball beginning tonight. Speaking of baseball, Josh Nason was going to be here with me. Do you know where he is? He is somewhere drunk at a bar after watching his Red Sox get killed by the Orioles this morning. Yeah, it's a hot day. I got two things. I got this blueberry Red Bull, and I've got Mid-South on the WWE Network from 1984 and 1985 when it was at its godliest. I could do a whole show just ranting about that, but I'm not. Instead, I'm going to open up the phone lines and let you rant. 1-800-878-PLAY, 1-800-878-7529. Or get a hold of me on Twitter as well, at Sempervive. The Superstar Shakeup. I just also realized how big of an idiot I feel like saying Superstar Shakedown because of Brian. It's the Superstar Shakeup. It never was anything else. Bell Center, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. 2 straight days of it. On Raw and on SmackDown. Will there be a lot of moves? What moves do you want to see made? Who do you think will be coming up? Doesn't seem to be there's too many people coming up. Still doesn't mean that I can't hold out hope that Kerry Sane or somebody could come up. Well, as much as you can be in these days where you'd like everybody just to remain on NXT. I don't think Daniel Bryan's going to NXT, but I hope he's okay. Hope we can find out some news on that and see how he's doing. Bunch of stuff going on as well, too. I want to hear from you. Make producer Dom work today. He deserves it. Wrestling Observer Live. You know how bad things were for Boston today? You got 4 hit by Dan Straley and a bunch of relievers. Worse than that, allowed Chris Davis to hit a home run. The formerly 0-52 Chris Davis. Mike Sempervive, Wrestling Observer Live. Superstar shakeup tonight. If you have thoughts on that, let me know. 1-800-878-PLAY. 1-800-878-7529. You can get a hold of me on Twitter as well. We're always available there, at Sempervive, at Sports Byline USA, and, of course, at WON-F4W for all the news and professional wrestling and mixed martial arts that you need, including updates on podcasts to come out, including ones that have Brian Alvarez, who is still on vacation from this show. He'll be back later on this week, but he was back to do a Brian and Vinny reviewing World Championship Wrestling from 1988. Bunch of other shows up there as well, too. Lance Storm ahead on technology. Second week in a row. He did a solo show last week with his friend Paul Lazenby. This week with Cyrus, Don Callis. Talking about a whole bunch of stuff, including his exploits now with Impact and Callis' thing that he had going on with Kenny Omega and all that. Carl Stern's got a new show up. A bunch of new stuff up there, including some Garrett and Dave shows. I'm sure tonight will not be a Garrett show. It will be all Brian and Dave to talk about what happens on the Superstar Shakeup. As I said in the opening edition, doesn't seem to be like there's going to be a whole lot of changes. Probably with people coming up at least. Already thought about anybody going down to NXT. It's going to happen. But they already brought up a bunch of people from NXT without a whole lot of focus in some cases. Although at least we've got a little bit now with Lacey Evans. And she and Becky Lynch are part of the official WWE 5-point preview. And I'll get to that in a moment. But we might as well go to the phones now. James in Sacramento. James, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks for taking my call.
What's on your mind?
I wanted to talk about the NWA. I don't hear that talked about a whole lot, and I was wondering about sort of where their direction is now in the current sort of wrestling environment, because it seems like a year ago up to, the NWA 70 show, which was, I think, 6 months ago now, thereabouts?
About that, yeah.
They seemed like they had this direction. I know both Billy Corgan and David Lagana talked a lot about their 20-year plan and their vision and all this kind of stuff. But a lot of it seemed like it was based around different promotions working together. I know at one point Billy outright said, I think the future of the indies is everybody working together against the WWE. But it seems like with AEW coming on the scene, they've sort of radically changed the industry to where, a lot of indies are kind of, they're putting out a lot more money to lock people down to exclusive contracts, and there's not as much working together anymore. And I'm just wondering if you think the NWA kind of needs to change their direction, or if they don't need to change anything, or how do you think the NWA kind of grows and develops in this sort of changed wrestling environment?
James, appreciate it. That's a really good question. And I guess in a way, whether they intended to do it or not, but AEW really kind of stole all of the thunder from the NWA, including working with other people. Now, obviously, the Crockett Cup is coming up here on April 27th, and that whole weekend they got a bunch of stuff planned around that down in Concord, North Carolina, and obviously you listen to Jim Cornette's podcast. He's talked about it a lot. He'll be doing the announcing for it. He did the announcing for the last show as well, too, something that's right up his alley. They have announced the Rock and Roll Express against the Briscoes, which, again, is something because the Briscoes have been in Ring of Honor and then, been so aligned for so long. It's a match that's never happened, but it's kind of amazing that it hasn't. In the days of the indies, it seems like the Rock and Roll Express have faced everybody. So we're finally going to see him out here against the Briscoes. But AEW kind of stole their thunder because now Billy Corgan and the NWA is just kind of, I'm not saying stuck working with Ring of Honor, but that's where they've been aligned the whole time. And any hope that they had to kind of go outside of that is it's tough. And I don't know exactly what their plan could be. I mean, one of the reasons that Billy had that plan of, well, maybe we can all work together is because what was he going to do, start his own company in full? And even if he wanted to, now the environment seems to be completely impossible to do that. So, I mean, the best thing he can do is basically be the best booking office he could be to Nick Aldis and to Willie Mack and whoever's holding the NWA championships, Jazz and people like that, and trying to do something that way and to keep trying to carve a niche and just keeping the NWA name out there. They have the championship wrestling in Hollywood, in Arizona shows, the Dave Marquez shows. I'm not sure if they're still aligned with the NWA or not. I would assume that they are. This is where, like, Tim Storm's title reign began. And they started up everything there. I know they got the NWA in Texas. I think that's where Josephus was. I don't know what you can do besides try to get those people onto Ring of Honor cards, try to get those people onto CMLL cards, who is having involvement technically coming up here in the Crockett Cup with Maya Jr. and God, I can't remember who the partner is. I'll find these brackets too and bring them up and let you know exactly who's going to be in it. And I'm sure we're going to have. I'm probably going to have Dave Lagana on, at some point leading into this, and probably a couple other people as well, too. Before the show begins, Stuka Jr. and Guerrero Maya Jr., they're going to face Flip Gordon and Bandito. Crimson and Jax Dane, I assume, again, they're still working. I believe it was out of Texas. I think Jax Dane's promotion or Louisiana. I can't remember exactly where he's been, but I know he's been NWA affiliated. They're going to face a wild card battle royal winner that's going to get that team entered into the tournament. Brody King and PCO against Satoshi Kojima and Yuji Nagata, which is, I mean, that might be deceptive. I'm not saying it's going to be great, but that might deceptively be really, really good because you have a match there where PCO, and he'll probably still do it at some point, but he doesn't have to kill himself. Brody King is excellent when he's not. Again, he does amazing things when he's flying around too. But the reality of it is, like, it's a big dude who should work like a big dude. And against Kojima and Nagata, he'll be able to work stiff and big and not have to worry about hitting a plancha outside the ring or anything like that. So, I mean, that stuff's pretty fun. And you got Jazz and Sienna, Allison Kay for the women's championship. I know they may not be the most dynamic people in the world. Billy Jazz has been around forever or whatever, and I'm a big fan of Sienna. So that match I think is great, and the fact that it's going to be, I'm not saying it's going to be a stiffer style. I'm sure that's for sure. Willie Mack and Colt Cabana, Willie Mack, one of those guys, he had that WWE deal and then had it, pulled away for whatever reason medically, and he's just one of those guys that I wish would get more focus and more feature somewhere. Lucha Underground did it, and that was enough of a taste where it's like, man, I'd like to see this guy in the mix more and on a bigger stage, and hopefully he can do that, and hopefully, Corgan can get him out there and a little bit more, since he's, holding on to their national championship belt, which is a takeoff of the classic old Detroit and Mid-Atlantic 1976 style of U.S. title belt that he holds, so... Nick Aldis has been fantastic. If you've heard him on commentary, the visual with he and Camilla Kane is excellent. I'm not sure how well she can wrestle, but she's somebody that might be nice for Ring of Honor to look at and think about in their women's division. I mean, if he's going to be hanging out on the cards looking good in a suit announcing when he's not wrestling and she's standing behind him, maybe you can kind of incorporate her. I know they're going to be heel heavy there with Allure and whatnot, but I don't know, explore some options there. We'll see. I don't know if that answered any question at all, but the best thing they can do is, again, try to get those belts out there, try to get the people that hold the belts out there the same way they've done for Aldis. Do that for Mac. Do that for Jazz. It's the best, unfortunately, Billy Corgan, I think they can do right now, besides trying to get the name out there still. Whole lot more to get into. We'll be back. Back on the show, Mike Sempervive here with you, Wrestling Observer Live. Jay Ahola on Twitter, just curious why some people are so upset with Undertaker being involved in any capacity. Can't he be a special attraction? I think he still has a few in him. Thoughts? Well, did you see him in Saudi Arabia? I mean, he looked all right. He looked good on Raw. I'll give him that. I mean, he looked like an old wrestler in his 50s. He's been in the tanning booth a lot and looks a little dry, but he looked good. And he laid out Elias and cool. I mean, I for something like that, yes. As long as I guess he can still pick somebody up. And I guess he doesn't even have to, pick him up for the tombstone anymore because that's going to get dicey at some point. But if nothing else, I mean, if he can still, take his hand and put it on somebody's throat and they will still lift themselves up for him and fall to their backs, that choke slam is going to be over. The entrance is always going to be over. The name The Undertaker is always going to be over. In the future, I'm guaranteeing we're going to see holograms. And we're going to see one at WrestleMania. It's going to be The Undertaker, and that's going to be over. So, yeah, I mean, if somebody's still willing to give him a reaction, yes. Inside the wrestling ring, no. No, I don't need to see any more matches. I'm not sure I need to see any more matches out of Triple H. Be honest with you. One, for his sake, because he always seems to get hurt, although everything seems to be nice and clear after this Dave one. But because I don't really need to see it. I mean, down the line in the 6-man or something like that, fine. Although I'll say this. I am curious. And what got me thinking about this, I was looking at something else for something about Ring of Honor, about Future of Honor, and they got a guy there, Getty Calhoun, who's the Monster Factory Dojo champion. The guys like Punishment Martinez, it's they're the title for the shows that they run there, and Matt Riddle's held this when he was training there and everything. He's a big guy, and there's going to be there's some hope for him. So they got him there, and they did an angle last year where he beat up Danny Cage, and I'd forgotten about this until I was watching it, where he of course beats up the owner, and he takes out a knife, and he's cutting Cage's hair off with the knife and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a great wrestling tradition, and in a way we saw with kind of Kurt Angle with Baron Corbin, but in a different way where like the authority figure gets beat up. I mean, with Triple H last year after WrestleMania, it happened where you had the famous shot of Braun holding him by the throat and looking up all red-faced and bug-eyed and crying and whatnot. It was a hell of a visual. I wonder if we're going to see that visual at some point with somebody and Triple H in NXT. He is Uncle Paul. He is the guy. It's going to get a great reaction. It'll be huge. And I wonder who's going to be that guy down the line when that happens. Or if it's a whole group, if it's something like the Undisputed Era. At some point it's going to happen. And if they do it right, it's going to be huge. Jay Ola commented again, looked great on Raw, not so much in Saudi. Against Rusev, he looked good. I just don't need to see him in there. They got so many other guys. And again, if they did a 6-man Legends or something like that, okay, fine. But the entrance is over. I'll take the entrance. PA Online. Any news on Sasha's contract status? Yes, she still has one. And they're going to hold her to it. I don't know what to add with that. I'm assuming today she's still not happy, but we'll find out. Could they make her happy? Could they move her to SmackDown? Give her a title opportunity against Becky Lynch or, heaven forbid, Lacey Evans down the line? I wonder if you sent her down to NXT if she'd be happy. I bet you she would be. Matches with Io Shirai, matches with Kairi Sane, matches with Shayna Baszler. I wonder who's going to make that move going in the opposite direction. They're going to have to. Savannah, New Jersey, would you say that Samoa Joe is the most to gain if he's moved over to Raw and then maybe Balor to SmackDown? I don't know if he gains anything. You could do that. You probably should do that. One of the easiest things you can do and one of the most obvious things you can do every year, and it's always fine, is just to flip the champions. So if Joe flips, cool. But you never know. You could have Braun coming over to SmackDown, and then they can continue on with Braun and Samoa Joe. That would probably make a bit of sense. Apparently there's some travel issues for Raw. They sent me a link from WrestleZone here. John Pollock. I'll just go to the proper source. Our Canadian cousins. Brian Alvarez style. Yeah, I'll cause a delay in the show to check Wikipedia for things. Here we go. Post-wrestling. Nothing up on the main page, so this must have been something that was tweeted out there. But apparently there's travel issues with people coming into Canada, and I have no idea why, but I'll check on that as I try to search around on that as I move forward here. I'll go to the Raw 5-point preview, which was not exactly the most exciting thing in the world because, well, everything is kind of centering around the draft tonight or the Superstar Shakeup. The only other things that are on there are Lacey Evans stepping to Becky 2 belts, the Universal Freakin' Champion awaiting his next challenge. The Bar spoiled the winner-take-all match, pitting new Universal Champion Seth Rollins against new WWE Champion Kofi Kingston. But the Beast Slayer's willingness to put his title on the line one night after vanquishing Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania nevertheless proved that he's the type of champion he's always said he would be, and everything the Beast incarnate was not. Rollins will bring the Universal title to Raw for the Superstar Shakeup, and with competitors shifting brands over the next 2 nights, the list of potential foes for the Architect changes as well. So they'll have the exact same thing written up tomorrow for Kofi Kingston. Bobby Lashley, his Intercontinental Championship loss to Finn Balor, has made the already aggressive Almighty even more dangerous, as witnessed by his utter mauling of Dean Ambrose during the Lunatic Fringe's final night in WWE. Who will be Lashley's next target? And then some stuff about Roman Reigns. And that's about it. It's the depth of the preview there. I still got nothing on this. What the hell is this? It's really going to annoy me now. Let's see. Heard there are a number of travel issues involving WWE personnel and talent for tonight's show in Montreal. Things are being rewritten as a result. No word on what effect this will have on tonight's show. Aren't you glad you waited for that? So there. Absolutely nothing really to be added there as I went and searched for that. 1-800-878-PLAY. CIMA. Ramalama Ding Dong. Shima Nobunaga. His in-ring involvement with All Elite Wrestling will extend past his match at Double or Nothing. It is announced that CIMA has signed a full-time contract with AEW. Announcement was made by the Young Bucks on Being the Elite. Young Bucks credited CIMA for giving them their first break in pro wrestling by booking them in Dragon Gate after seeing them in PWG early in their careers. CIMA and his two partners from China's OWE, Oriental Wrestling Entertainment, will face SoCal Uncensored in a six-man tag match at Double or Nothing in Las Vegas on May 25th. So there you go. It was also teased on Being the Elite that the Super Smash Brothers look like they may be getting signed as well, too. It's good for CIMA and his career. He's a borderline Hall of Fame, Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame candidate. There are some people who think he's a no-brainer because of the influence that he's had and his training and all that sort of stuff. This is only going to help his cause with people getting a chance to see him really more for the first time, because there are probably a lot of people in America who have never really seen him. I mean, I shouldn't say that in this day and age. Give people credit for searching things out, and Dragon Gate for a good deal of time was very popular in this country, especially at a hardcore level. But for a lot of people, I mean, if you went and searched him on the WWE Network, what's going to come up? Him dancing about with Disco Inferno, and like I say, it was Magnum Tokyo doing that. But him being, beaten up by Chris Jericho on an episode of Nitro, and that's about it. I feel this cold getting worse. Gotta gather everything back. Try to get it together here.
You are listening to Wrestling Observer Live with Brian Alvarez and Mike Sempervive on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.
Mike Sempervive here with you. Sweating like a whore in church. Like Sudafed and Mucinex as a combination here is just troubling. Darkstar on Twitter. With Toni Storm heading back over to Stardom for a tour in May, do you think she'll defend the NXT UK Women's Championship during it? If so, who do you think she should face? Yeah, she is going over there now, isn't she? It sticks out like a sore thumb to me that Ring of Honor had Mayu Iwatani. They had access to a lot of these women. And that was the best we got out of it, was Mayu Iwatani and Kelly Klein. And now... And now, Toni Storm, the WWE's NXT UK Women's Championship, is going to be back over to a promotion she worked for and did very well in and built her name in and certainly helped her cause in as far as blowing up on the scene. And she's going to be over there. And I don't know. We've heard of New Japan scouting the Stardom and seeing how they run their shows and everything. And obviously WWE's already got their thing, but it cannot make anybody feel good who's not a fan of WWE, who likes women's wrestling, who sees, the influence and the claws that WWE's been able to dig in the UK and the US over here. It can't make you feel good, can it? Now, from a talent point of view, it's great. I don't know who I want to see her face, to be honest. They just shook up all the teams again. So I don't know. When's the last time Kagetsu's had a big shot at anything? I mean, because as Darkstar even mentions, she's obviously going to retain if she does defend her title over there. So why not? Why not a Kagetsu? Be really fun. She can take the L. It's no big deal. You don't have to worry about anything. I kind of like that. Got a good reward for her as well, too, considering how good she's been. Hopefully Oedo Kai can still dance. I believe it's part of one of the L's that led into that draft that they're not going to be able to dance anymore. You know, women's situation, too, just back to Ring of Honor. It's they got a recruitment combine that they have announced for May 4th and May 5th in Baltimore at their dojo there. And they're limiting it to 20 spots, and all of them are for women, which is probably a pretty good idea. Delirious, Will Ferrara, Jonathan Gresham, Ian Riccaboni, Todd Sinclair. They'll all be there. They need some, boy, I tell you that. And there's nothing on the horizon for them. I know that there's, because of what happened at Madison Square Garden, there's obvious concern for Ring of Honor. I think it was Rich Latta and Social Suplex Radio Network who said they've got a band of mercenaries in there with PCO and Brody King and all those guys. You know, it's a fair assessment. But they do have some guys kind of laying in the cut, and we'll have to see. And look, these are early in the game here. But they have guys at the at the dojos, at the Monster Factory, guys who are in close proximity to them at Maryland Championship Wrestling, like Malcolm and Bishop, who just signed to the MCW's Tag Team Champions, just signed to ROH deals, which just instantly, then them just being there is going to boost their tag team division. You know, they got Eli Isom, they got Ken Dixon, there's classic Eric Martin, who was over in WXW earlier on this year, did a tour there. Joe Keys, Brian Johnson, Dak Draper's a big dude. There's people there that it's not going to be instant, but they're going to be, working their way up. But you look at the women's side of things, and and I go to some of those Future of Honor shows, that there's not a whole lot of women there. They've had Raquel Vaughn, who, is still going to be, is not ready for every week on TV prime time. And who knows if they can even hold on to somebody like her, because it's not like she's based in the Northeast, I don't believe. I think she's based out of Texas, so she just comes up and works, and I don't even think has been up there the past couple of shows. The Sea Stars are around. But I could, and that's where, too, Ring of Honor is going to have to try to get aggressive here, and obviously they're going to try with this combine, but, the Sea Stars, if you don't pick them up, and they're really early in their game and everything, but it's AEW or somebody else like that is going to scoop them up. I don't know if Gabby Ortiz is ready to be on TV every week. Stella Gray's, wrestled down at those shows. She's already up on the roster. Holiday and Thunder Rosa make appearances. Holiday did this past weekend, but I don't know if she's going to be, regularly in the mix for them or not. So they definitely need to do that. Jorge on Twitter, Toni could defend against Viper, who stayed in Queen's Quest. She absolutely could. And Viper, who just debuted on NXT UK. Beating up Killer Kelly. Almost said Kelly Klein. But whenever Killer Kelly, which we're at such a weird time. It's such a weird time in wrestling right now. Because Killer Kelly just teamed up on a Sendai card over the weekend with Sendai's champion Chihiro Hashimoto. And they faced Sari, who basically represents Diana, and Jordan Grace, who represents Impact. It's like, what? And what day is it today? Today's the 15th. Early tomorrow morning, Jordan Grace is going to be facing Chihiro Hashimoto for the Sendai Championship. Is it okay to call a hoss battle for women? Is that a fair term? The hossettes? Those two are going to kick each other's ass. Chihiro Hashimoto is great. She really is. Trained by Mako Satomura. She's not your beauty queen. She's not your idol, is going to take all the pictures and do all that sort of stuff. She's a wrestler with a singlet and a background in amateur women's wrestling, Natsu Samairi, she's not. Hana Kimura, she is not. She is Mako Satomura. That's another thing, too. When is Mako Satomura going to get a shot? I know I've said this before, but she needs one. She needs one, Miyu Yamashita, which I assume she's going to end up having one in AEW at some point. I don't know if they're closely associated with Tokyo Joshi Pro and DDT or not, but I would assume that they're the closest to them, so that would make a lot more sense for her to be there. And Sari's another one. She's 23 years old. She was trained by Kyoko Inoue. She's got her anniversary match coming up against Mako Satomura. That's who she debuted against in April of 2011. Somebody's going to need to quickly scoop her up as well, too. Because she's already really good, and at only 23 years old. She had a good match with Hashimoto early this year for the title. So there's talent out there. There are people out there. It just depends on how hard they want to push that division. And it's if you're gonna have a women's division that's not going to be competitive, it's not going to be on par with where we're at with women's wrestling across the globe, then don't have a title. Just have some women on your shows doing some stuff and have them be, incorporated into some whatever. But you don't need a title for that. See what you think. 1-800-878-PLAY. Marcelo in Denver. Marcelo, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Mike?
Doing all right, I think. I'm starting to clear up here a little bit. The wind is dying down. I'm feeling a little bit better. So, yeah, with about 10 minutes to go in the show, I'm ready for it to start. What's on your mind?
Yeah, man. So I had a question, and I'm sure it's probably just a no straight up, but do you know if the Superstar Shakeup's going to include, 205 Live, or is it just most likely NXT, SmackDown, and Raw?
I would assume it can. If there's somebody that they want to come up, it's certainly not close to it. I mean, if you wanted to take Buddy Murphy and go, okay, we'll put him in NXT, or if put him on Raw or something like that, I mean, you absolutely could. It's just, you look at the numbers game and you look at the names that are involved on 205 Live and you go, who could come up? You could have a surprise. You could have Kushida technically called up from NXT and placed into 205 Live, but it just seems to be like 205 Live. I'm not saying it's forgotten about per se, but I think they'll put it in the background and they can just kind of slide people up and down to that at their will. I don't think it's going to be a focal point on the show tonight, except I think for maybe a Buddy Murphy, since he's already, I'm not saying he's accomplished everything he could there, but he seems to have kind of peaked there, and if there's going to be one guy who can step up and move on, I would say it's either going to be him and or Cedric Alexander, and I think Alexander stays down there. So if anybody's going to get a tweak, it's probably going to be Buddy Murphy.
Do you think that there's a limit on Buddy Murphy as to where he go? Because I know Vince is really not a fan of smaller guys and everything.
No, but he's, body-wise, at least he's ripped to shreds that way. And I thank you very much for the call. I mean, at least he's got a pretty good look. And, yeah, he is smaller and everything, but with Daniel Bryan, with Kofi, with Sami Zayn, I mean, these are not monstrous human beings or anything like that, and the work, can override a lot of that stuff, and he works really super hard, and he's, taken a lot of Japanese moves and moves noted for Japanese wrestlers, V-triggers and things like that, and acquired them and put them in for himself, so... Yeah, I think he could have a shot, but it's like anybody else. Once they hit a brand and you see what's there, it's like, well, okay. I don't know how much confidence that you can have in anything, but one thing I'll say you can have confidence in is Kushida, and I wanted to bring this up on yesterday's show, and I didn't get the chance to, but days after being introduced as the newest member of the roster, Kushida debuted on Wednesday night's TV tapings down at Full Sail, and on Saturday night, he was part of a tag match that was right out of many of your dreams. It was Kushida and Matt Riddle defeating the Future Shock portion of Undisputed Era, Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, which in Sanford, Florida. I'm jealous. Last Wednesday, Kushida defeated Cassius Ohno at the tapings, and I just ruined that. I'm sorry, but let's be honest here. If you're seeing Cassius Ohno wrestle on TV, he's likely losing. So I'm sorry if that just ruined everything for you. But, yeah, Kushida defeated Cassius Ohno. And J.J. Williams or an intrepid coconut loop investigator. So it was a long back-and-forth match, but they kept Kushida in the Marty McFly jacket and silver glasses. So they're going to keep seemingly the same type of character, even though the Time Splitter name obviously is gone, but hit the no-mo punch and then submit him with a hoverboard lock. Man, for as much as I'd love to see Kushida on 205 Live dominating, the problem is not many people will see him, and I think more eyes will be on him in NXT, and I think you can do a lot more with him in NXT, including have him in matches with Matt Riddle and in the title picture with Gargano and stuff like that. I just think it's so awesome with having Kushida around and having him in matchups, even if you don't love WWE or anything like that. Him in some of these matchups are just awesome. Get back to put a bow on this thing, Wrestling Observer Live. Producer Dom using all the Well A drops today. Dom, is it true if you trim the shrubs, the tree stands taller? Okay. Hey, speaking of Ono and Cole, Evolve Wrestling has announced that both of those men will be wrestling at the two shows in May 10th and 11th. Evolve's 127 and 128 in Livonia, Michigan, and Indianapolis, Indiana. Evolve also announced their 10th anniversary show will be taking place July 13th at the ECW Arena. ROH also announced they'll be running the arena on June 29th for a TV taping, one day after Best in the World. So once again, be held at the UMBC Event Center in Catonsville outside Baltimore. Shout out to Old Frederick Road. But no Nagata and Kojima. I'm very upset about that. They've been announced for those shows, and guess what? If you were waiting on somebody to be announced before you bought your tickets for Dallas for the G1 Climax, it's been announced that Okada, Ibushi, Naito, and White will all be wrestling in Dallas. The American Airlines Center in Dallas, Saturday, July 6th. The rest of the tournament taking place in Japan at Budokan Hall, hosting the finals August 10th, 11th, and 12th. Dave reported in this week's Wrestling Observer they're discounting tickets in Dallas for that show because the advance is so disappointing. Quote, there are very different views as it's been expressed that doing so feels like cheapening the product, and New Japan's appeals to a select group that is willing to pay for the tickets, but the issue is how many of them are in the specific markets, especially now with the key American markets draws being done. Unquote. Well, how about this? Run a smaller building. Just saying. I don't know if everywhere needs to be 20,000 seats. I heard they got a great deal because of Mark Cuban. That's great, but if he can help you that one, he might be able to help you get into a smaller building too. See what happens on the shake-up tonight. Wrestling Observer Live.
On Friday, July 20th, 8 o'clock, Sam Houston Coliseum, ladies and gentlemen. 8 great matches, 22 top stars, and it's all going to happen at that time. A dog collar match is what we want to focus on at this time, and now let's hear from Hacksaw Butch Reed. He'll explain that dog collar match to you.
A dog collar match, a 10-foot chain. You know something, dog? You know what your problem is, boy? You ain't house broke yet, see? That's your problem. You ain't learned how to go in and out of the house when you supposed to, understand? So the dog catcher, Butch Reed, is going to have to teach you some manners, understand? Because, boy, I done took you in a ghetto street fight match, come dressed as you are, and I whooped you right out your filthy, nasty socks. I took you in the yellow paint match, boy, and you walked out of there instead of old black greasy dog, old high yellow dog. I took you in 10-foot steel cage matches, and I made you run through the cage. I made you climb the wall and be a fist jumper. I took you in tape fist matches, boy, and I made you use that tape on other parts of your anatomy that I will not mention. So I'm kicking in the doghouse. This is the ultimate dog collar match, boy. Your game, you understand? And when I change the dog to the post, baby, Butch Reed hails forever.
Well, JY, this is your kind of match. He was right about that, and this is the ultimate. And it's all on the line this Friday night in Houston.
This is going to be a nasty situation. You know, the last time there in Houston, I had one of the toughest fights that I ever had along with Butch Reed due to the fact that I had some outside interference. But like you said, we're going to have 10 foot of change. Each one of us have a dog collar around our necks. You know, biggest Butch neckhead is my neck. We better add about 3 or 4 more feet of change to that thing so we'll have enough room to maneuver around in there. But I'm going to tell you one thing, Reed. Oh, yeah, it's going to come down to you or me kicking in the doghouse or you being the dog catcher or whatever. It's been 5 or 6 years. People been running behind me trying to catch a dog catcher, and all they caught was fumes. And that's exactly what you're going to catch. One of us going to walk out that ring together, and one of us might. But I'm going to pray to the man above. Just let both of us be able to walk out. But I know, Butch Reed, deep down in your heart, you want the old dog lane so you can get up there on the totem pole. But like I said, you can take an outhouse along with 1,000 gnats and send them out in the woods, and 1,000 of you wouldn't draw flies.
One may and one may not walk out of the ring on this match. It is the Junkyard Dog, especially the vicious dog collar match. Hacksaw Reed and JYD connected at the neck with a 10-foot steel chain. It is a brutal match. This issue will be settled Friday, July 20th. That's this Friday night at 8 o'clock.